Good evening and welcome back to Continual. Thanks for joining us this evening. I am Jim Nettles. I will be your host and moderator, science fiction, fantasy, as well as a nonfiction author as well. Going to have my panelists introduce themselves before we get started, and we will be talking about screenplays and screenwriting this evening. So before we get started, I'm going to start with Julie for the first time guest.
Well, hello, my name is Julie Hurwitz. I was asked to be on this panel. I have been working in television, not necessarily writing, but in television for over 30 years, mostly as an executive assistant to various producers on shows, as well as musicals and stuff. And I'm also a romance writer. And so that's where my connection comes in. Anything else, just ask.
Mark.
Hi. I guess I came to screenwriting out of working in comics and the comic book industry. I was specifically, I wrote and published various comic books, including Battlestar Galactica, 24, Stargate Atlantis, Stargate Universe, stuff like that. And so generally I was always writing in somebody else's sandbox. My day jobs at various times prior to my last layoff involved information technology or communications about information technology. So, databases, websites, all that kind of stuff. And so I have just recently started my own production company, working on 3 or 4 different projects, 3 pilots, one of which is with Roddenberry Entertainment, which is obviously the descendant company of Gene Roddenberry's Lincoln Enterprises and Norway Corporation, which was behind the original Star Trek. So that's kind of fun to be doing that. And finally, after version 10, we've turned in the final version of the script, and now they're going to try to sell it, which is the fun part.
Selling is the important part.
Yeah.
Elle Marie, award-winning.
Should warn me when you're going to do that. Hi, I'm Elle Marie Wood. I'm a psychological horror author. My most recent novel, The Realm, just came out in October. It's pretty fun. It's a sci-fi horror mashup. But I also write screenplays, and I've been lucky enough to win a few awards here in the past 6, 7, 8, I don't know, 6, 7 months have been really going pretty well for me with that. So I'm kind of excited. But yeah, I came to screenwriting. I mean, I guess as a child of the 80s, all I did was watch movies and videos, music videos and stuff like that. And I was inspired, especially considering that I've always wanted to write. So I thought, well, I'll try my hand at that. Went to college for it, put it down, and have recently picked it back up. And I'm excited to be here talking about it since I've decided to come back, if you will.
And Tamsin.
Hi, I'm Tamsin Silver, and I'm a published author with Falstaff Books. And I'm here because someone suckered me into writing a web series back in 2012, I guess it was. Eons ago. I feel like I don't belong in this group. You guys are all doing this really professionally. But I did produce and write and direct a web series that we did for Vampire Freaks. Small Town Pictures joined us, and we spent a summer in hell, and we made this web series that for the goth community in New York. And I look back and I can remember the fun now. The cast is really what made it. The crew and the cast were really fantastic, and it was my first time ever writing for screen, so it was kind of cool.
Cool. So I think it's a good place to start talking about how you actually got started in screenwriting. Since we've already started down that path, Tamsin, how did you lose a bet and have to write the first screenplay?
Yeah, right. So I'm very good friends with Jet Berelson, and he owns a company called, we'll do it, Vampire Freaks. People have heard of it. It's a clothing line. It's a store for goth industrial things out of New York originally, and he used to have a physical store down the village, not anymore. And he sat down and he said, hey, I'd had a couple of books out and I was having some success with them. And he's like, we'd like to do a web series for Vampire Freaks. And I was like, oh, that'd be cool. He goes, yeah, we'd like to see if you'd like to write it. And I'm like, sure. So the problem here is that I'm from Michigan and I'm from the 80s, 70s, 80s kid. And like my first answer is always, yeah, I can do that. Can you drill a hole in this wall and find the electrical? Sure, I'm sure I can figure that out. This is the problem my generation from there has. And so I was like, sure, I could do that. And so I was like, and so we sat down to really work on it. And we came up with, it took us a while to come up with a title and what we wanted to do. Obviously, because of the name of the company, they wanted to have vampires in it. And the first thing I said was, I'll do this, but you have to let me, we're not doing campy. We're not doing poor quality. We'll do a little cheaper than the high, but we're not going to film this. Okay, nowadays you could, but at that time, we're not filming this on our iPhone and throwing it up there, right? Because at the time that wasn't like a good idea. The quality was so bad. So Jet asked me if I'd do it, and I was silly enough to say yes. And then I sat down to write. I wrote 6 episodes for our first season, and we put them out we put them out in 2013, 2014, I believe. They're now free. You can watch them on YouTube. You can get to them through skyofthedam.com. There's information on all the actors there. It was, and that's sort of, and it just started the ball rolling. But Jet was like, you know what? We think this would be cool. So that's how I ended up doing that.
What about you, Julie? How'd you wind up joining the industry?
I have family who's in the industry, and I was always interested in writing altogether, anything. And tried my hand at a couple of screenplays in high school. Talk about bad. I didn't know what to do, how to write a screenplay, how to write a story or anything. And luckily I had people guide me to, here's what you need to include in the story. But I knew that no matter what, I wanted to work in the industry and maybe pick up stuff by osmosis. So after college, I moved out to California, got a job, got another one, and kept going. So I have steered away from actually writing for television or film myself. I've been on the production end of it and in development, working for executive producers and stuff, and mostly concentrated on writing romance novels, short stories, erotic short stories and stuff like that. So I've worked more, as I said, in production and in development. So I come at it from a different angle. I'm looking at, is someone going to submit something and what needs to happen? What happens during production, pre-production? How do you get a script from a story on a storyboard into script format so that the production crew can take that and run with it?
And I want to talk a little bit about that side of things, working from the writer's room and how things get from the writer's room to the screen. And I do want to get into a little bit of that here in a bit.
Certainly.
So what about you, Mark?
I got into this. It's interesting because I had absolutely no interest. I mean, I was a fan of movies and TV, but I don't want to say I didn't have any interest in it. And it wasn't like I was sitting back and saying, well, I could do that. I mean, I was, a huge Star Trek and sci-fi fan through high school and college, and had written like little bits of fan fiction here and there, but nothing serious. And like a lot of fan fiction, people whose early works of fan fiction, I had seen a lot of it where it's generally like scenes and incidents and scenarios lifted from existing stuff, like episodes or novels or whatever, and you kind of just tweaking it around. But where I basically got into it seriously was a friend had organized a pitch meeting with Star Trek Voyager, which was just getting started, and this would have been the mid 90s with the UPN network, which a lot of people will have not ever heard of, maybe watching this. But that was the Paramount starting a network and Voyager being their Star Trek franchise. And something that Gene Roddenberry had started in the original series and then brought forward and existed through the end of Enterprise was that you could get an appointment as a writer to pitch to those shows without an agent or a manager. You could just go in, pitch them a story, they would buy it. And the idea was you sell a couple of stories and eventually you work your way up to the point where they're going to let you write a screenplay. I never really got that far. They didn't buy any stories, but at the time I had a very good job, so I could like fly out to California for these meetings, and that was incredible fun, you know. And I mean, the first time I went there, I hyperventilated. I mean, I could barely breathe. And the guy I was pitching to, who was a story editor, was Brian Fuller, who now has created all of these wonderful shows like Pushing Daisies, and now you know, was on Hannibal, which was like one of my all-time favorite TV shows, and hard to believe it was on NBC, but it was fantastic. And when I later posted something when I started working on this, the current pilot, one of the current pilots I'm working on for Roddenberry, I posted that that I got started in a meeting where I hyperventilated in front of Brian Fuller, and I put that on Twitter, and he saw it. I tagged him, and he saw it, and he's like, "I remember that," you know, and I'm just like, thanks. I'm happy you remember that.
Nothing like being memorable.
Yeah, exactly. So that, I mean, that's how I got started. And even then, I don't know how serious about it I was until I got the opportunity to write the comic book version of 24 for IDW Comics, because they were really trying. They'd had great success doing CSI in comic books, and also, and then they did The Shield, which didn't do as well. And it cut our 12-issue miniseries down to a bunch of 48-page one-shots. So, you know, I ended up doing that. And I then went to a screenwriting conference in LA. And at that time, you know, writing a couple spec episodes of something that was already on the air or currently on the air was an accepted way to get representation and go in, kind of the standard thing you will read. And we might touch on this again later, but I will say that everybody who's ever gotten in this business, as far as I know, has never done it a standard way. There's the way they tell you, and then there's like what everybody does to get in. So listen to what they tell you, then do what you think you should do. But one of the producers of 24 said that I was unique in terms of writing spec scripts, because 24 was one of the shows they said you couldn't write a spec of because it was 1 hour out of an entire story. He's like, but since you wrote the comic book, writing that would be fine. And that's when I got serious about it, and then proceeded to write years worth of really terrible scripts until I got to the point where I started a company last year and have been working on the Roddenberry thing. So sorry that was a little bit longer than I intended. That's it.
What about you, El Marie?
Well, so when I was 5 years old, no.
First year, cool.
Funny, the fact is, it really does. My whole process really does begin from back there. But when I was 5, I wrote this psychological horror story that we didn't know to call it that, but that's what it was, and scared the people I allowed to read it, which comprised my mother, my grandmother, my teacher, and they were like, you know, what's wrong? I don't know if they were like, what's wrong with her, or oh my God, this is great. It could have been both. I don't know. And wrote this thing, and I said, you know, I really liked that. That was kind of fun, you know, and I kept doing it. And I was writing, but I was writing stories at the time and not thinking about writing for television or screen or anything like that until, I mean, then the 80s come, and, you know, now I'm watching TV with more of a focus, you know, and there's a lot of stuff out there. I mean, no, I'm not going to admit that I saw The Exorcist early. I mean, at least I'm not going to say when, right? I saw it early, but I won't tell you when, right? But I saw that and I'm like, that's kind of cool. I could, you know, I like that. That's kind of the kind of stuff I like. And I saw The Omen and those sorts of things. But then on television, and someone tried to help me with this title. There was a movie. If you're from New York at all, you might remember the programming. It came on Thanksgiving, like right after King Kong. And then it would be this, if you weren't watching football. It was this movie, and it was like a pregnant woman, these little gremlins, and they grabbed her and would yank. The ending is they pulled her down the stairs.
That's The Brood.
Mm-hmm.
No, it was longer. Don't Be Afraid of the Dark. Don't be afraid.
Yeah.
Television movie.
I was gonna say The Brood on television on Thanksgiving Day. Probably. I was just guessing.
No problem. But it was that, and then after that would be acid rain. Terrible. The faces melted. It was awesome. And I'm sitting there like, whoa, this is like what I'm trying to do, right? So I decided after watching that I really needed to be in on this, because if you could literally make someone's face melt and they put it on television, oh yeah. So I was just fooling around. I didn't do much. But then, once I got serious about doing it, I went to college to study film production. I went to Howard University and graduated with a film production degree. But I got out in the mid 90s, and it's time now to realize that was around the time when you're like, yeah, you can chase your dream, but you need a job too. I mean, let's not be silly here. So I went the route of the real job and did the screenwriting on the side, and eventually put it down because I also write. I still never stopped writing the novels, as I told you earlier. So the novels were what I pushed first. And life goes on and you put the screenplays away for a while, but then I came back to it because, again, it's watching. I watch all the time. I watch stuff and I say to myself, I can still do this. Like, I didn't forget how to do it. And I probably still really want to do it. So I wrote one on a whim a couple of years ago and said, let's just see. All of a sudden I started getting into the cycle of the whole film festival thing, which hopefully we'll talk about. And you submit these things, and then it's just starting to take off in that way. And I'm happy that something in me still said, hey, you're not really done with that. Come back to it, because I came back to it with a maturity that didn't exist before. So I'm excited.
Maturity? Wait.
Only at some levels, not much. If you know me well, like there's like 2 places I'm mature and the rest forget it.
And this is not one of the 2.
No, none of these panels am I ever mature, please. I'm trying to hold it together now.
So, Julie.
I feel you on that.
So I want to dive a little bit into, because we're talking about how the business works and how screenplay works, because you're writing romance, but you've also been on the other side of watching that transition between the writing, the writer's room, and getting it to screen. So starting there as a writer, from your perspective, how is it different looking at screenplay writing, and writing for that medium versus writing for a novel or a book?
Oh, the biggest difference that I found, that I see, is in novels or short stories or novellas, whatever, you have exposition and you have the ability to delve into someone's thoughts and feelings and stuff like that. Whereas when you write a screenplay, while you can put a little bit of that on the board and on the page, pretty much you need to convey everything as much as possible via dialogue, and then trust your actor to convey the feelings behind the dialogue. And so for me, especially screenplay writing and script writing, dialogue is very important. You got to have the right ear for it and hear the dialogue and be able to convey it that way. The getting into it one way or the other, I know a lot of people who take novels and they want to then write the adaptations. That's really big right now. I just finished, or I'm in the midst of binge watching Bridgerton. Don't know if anybody's watching that. That's a series of romance novels that they took and have reimagined pretty much, but use that as the basis for their series. And hopefully it's going to go longer, but the first series is one novel. And I find that really interesting, because a lot of times you take a novel and you adapt it into a single movie of the week or a single screenplay, which I'm sure, and I know, is not very easy. You have to find that nugget in order to transpose the novel into the screenplay. But to take a novel and make it a series of episodes, I'm sure is a whole nother way of storytelling and way of breaking down the plot and the screenplay and the structure of it too.
And I think it's interesting because if you look at a lot of films that sometimes are challenged by their fans, I wouldn't call out Star Wars at all. But we look at the novelizations as filling the holes in those films. A number of people saying, oh, that's why they did that. Or, oh, there's the deleted scene that landed on the floor that explains why they did the other stupid thing that they did. So it's that in reverse, it's taking as you said, the movie and creating a novelization to give those
thoughts and feelings and everything that may or may not have made it onto the screen.
Well, something that's interesting, if I can jump in.
Oh yeah.
That with streaming shows, and I'll talk specifically about Star Trek Discovery and Star Trek Picard, which are the two kind of modern iterations of Star Trek. And the difference being from the previous series, where there were some serialized elements that would continue. These are the first two that we're going to tell one big story across 13 episodes. And what's interesting about it is that and that's not the only shows obviously that do it. A lot of streaming shows do that now because they're trying to achieve that binge-worthy label that goes out on the internet. And so now it's like when I was coming up and really starting, the whole idea of a pilot is going to be an example of, because my work mainly towards television. I haven't done anything with features yet, but the idea is that pilot's going to be a slice out of the middle of a loaf of bread. So this is what your show is going to be like on a weekly basis. And now that pilot is chapter 1. So you can have like the barest whiff of a story, meaning that, the whole purpose of the story is to get this person from point A to point B, and you will start 100 threads that are going to continue through those episodes. And so it's kind of actually, it's a challenge to write it, because now, and this is what we were dealing with the Roddenberry pilot, is, we were trying to write something that was more episodic, and when the industry was turning towards this as kind of the thing of the moment. And, it turned it into a thing where now, when I was a little kid, they'd call them miniseries on TV. So, but now it's like long form entertainment or, serialized storytelling. And so that pilots are more like chapter 1, I think, of a novel. On the first question you said too, I wanted a mentor. I don't remember if it was a mentor of mine or where I actually heard this, but they told me, because I was doing the mistake of trying to put exposition into the scene description. You can only describe things you see, right? So the idea was that, and it's the teacher, and I again don't remember where I heard this, so I don't want to claim credit for it. It is not mine. I heard it from somewhere else. Was that novels are about what people think, stage plays are about what people say, and screenplays are about what people do. And that really helped me kind of stop doing that in my screenplays.
Like banner worthy, what you just said. You can put that on like a,
Right.
I think that needs to be on the company T-shirt.
Yeah.
There you go.
I hear stuff
It's very
like that.
interesting that you talked about how things have changed, because you're very right. 20 years ago or longer or less, whatever, things had to be much more episodic. It's the way the industry worked. It's the way things were sold. You needed those episodes to sell in syndication and to sell to USA Network and, Comedy Central. They wanted episodes. They did not want a long arc.
Yeah, stuff they could show in any order they want.
Exactly. They could show them in any order they want. But now they want those arcs. They want something that is binge worthy to watch from A to Z, from 1 to 10 or whatever.
Mm-hmm. And the whole binge worthy idea is brand new. We didn't have Netflix and Hulu or whatever. We didn't have those to be able to get all 13 episodes and just right there. You had to wait every week. And I was trying to explain this to younger people, whatever. But, you had commercials. So you went to the bathroom on the commercial, you come back and you watch the rest of the show. There's none of this pausing or rewinding the thing. None of that. And
that caused some trouble for us.
But that's what kept you watching, though. You wanted to, you didn't want to hurry up. There's not a whole long conversation. Get to the bathroom, get your soda, whatever it was, and hurry up back, because this is about to come back on. Now, I don't have to wait for next week for a show to come on. I could watch I watched Bly Manor. Is it called Bly Manor? I watched that in like 2 days because we had nothing to do. And I was happy about it because it was a great show. But at the same time, I'm like, that's not the way it's supposed to be. So
you lost the water cooler moments.
It changed. Yeah, right. Well, what water cooler now?
I'm about to say, I don't get to do that anymore.
Right.
The shared collective of watching something together.
True.
During
right.
that whole last year, during the whole last year where everybody's stuck at home, I was trying to program my evenings with these binge-worthy shows. Like Monday night, I'm going to watch Star Trek, and then Tuesday night, like I was a little kid, because
Yeah.
I didn't know when more seasons were going to become available, because
Right.
like if I binged a show and it's like I've waited a year and a half for this season and it's going to be at least a year and a half for the next season, I want to stretch this out as long as possible.
Yes.
Yeah, we made the mistake of binging Stranger Things. I kept telling these people in this house, let's not watch it all at once. And no one listened. And then it was so good. I'm like, I can't cut it off. So, all right, we're watching it. And now look. That's all I can say. But no,
we had
the way you write. You end up, you're right about it being chapter one. It's no longer this episodic where you have this little, maybe a little subplot that's sort of, at the very back of your mind, it's in there, it connects the characters, but really not the important part. Now, each segment is not self-contained. Each segment bleeds into the next. And not only, that's pretty difficult to write unless you're used to writing, like, because as a psychological horror author, often we don't do a whole bunch of series. We just, it's like one book, standalone books. And then
I'm going to kill you when it's over. So
right. A whole different set of a different set of characters for the next book, right? But in fantasy, there's lots of continuing storylines with all these multiple books. And that's kind of the way I see these new TV series. I do definitely call them miniseries in my mind. I don't even care. It's a miniseries,
right,
as far as I'm concerned.
Oh, yeah,
But,
exactly.
what can I say?
when we were doing Sky of the Damned, we fell in the middle. So when we started doing it and we were planning when everything was happening, we did all that, we had it all planned out. And somewhere between then and when we started releasing them is when binging started. So what happened was we released one and people were like, well, where's the other one? We're like, it'll be out next month or next whatever. They're like, what do you mean? I'm like, because that's when we planned it. Like, so we literally fell in that bad spot.
Yeah.
Sky of the Damned actually gets a little more love now because someone can sit and watch all 6 episodes and goes, that was fun. But it's interesting when you mentioned the book, that's, so I did the thing. So I took the first season and then the 7th episode, which I wrote, which we never got to film, and I turned it into a novella. And you said, you get to learn more about these people. And that's one of the things I loved about it was that I got to take these characters that the people really did an amazing job of, because I was on set. So the actors were able to be like, all right, tell me about this character. And I've been in theater and I've been a director and a casting director for a while. And so, so that was, they were like, this is helpful because the author and the director is right here and she knows these characters. And so, and it was this cool little cast of, this one probably shines too much. This probably doesn't. But these were my cast and they were wonderful. And, but it was great because I got to explore their characters and write them and get to know them better in this. And then Hope of the Damned is the second one that I did. And the third one I'll start working on once I finish my 3rd Billy book. And that one's Faith of the Damned. But it's the same thing. The kids actually, I call them kids because they were way younger than me, but they're not that young. But they made fun of me because at the end of each episode they would go dun 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 because they're like, it leaves you like what's next? I'm like, yeah, I write fantasy. That's kind of what we do.
Yeah.
And so, which is, I think, the reason why then when it wasn't binge worthy, people were like, damn it. And they're like, this is really great. I really enjoyed it, but where's the next one?
Yeah.
Right.
And so we were stuck with, we weren't prepared for binge. So if I were to go back and do this again, I would be like, okay, let's wait till we have them all ready and just release them. But at the time, that wasn't what you did. And we sort of fell into that sad section of what people wanted and what we could give them. But it's still, I think the best compliment, though, I've gotten on the entire series, though, is someone goes, I just watched this. I never saw this when it came out, which is like, what, 2013, 20 years ago now, right? Feels like it. And they're like, it really holds up. I was like, fuck, thank God.
I had a guy hit my Twitter over the Christmas break. Had just found the Stargate comics that are 4 years old now. He's like, when's the next one coming out? And I'm like, there isn't one coming out.
There isn't, but I'm glad you like the first one.
Yeah, thanks, buddy.
You don't find that same dynamic with full-length movies, like feature length. That's not, people are willing, and then even if they know a sequel is sort of pending, right? It seems like we've let you linger long enough to know that there's something coming. They don't, I'll never forget. Do you remember this one back in the 80s, Flash Gordon?
Oh,
yeah.
Right?
Yes.
When Ming is like looking at the ring or whatever, you may not remember the details. I was like really into that movie. But so, and you just kept waiting and it never came out.
Question mark.
But even at the same time, it's kind of forgivable because it was like not a big deal that it didn't come out. Right. But now I wonder what the dynamic will be, with the way we're all watching at home, everything's being, early accessed on Prime or whatever.
Oh, and the whole big thing about Warner Brothers.
I'm sorry?
And the whole thing about Warner Brothers and HBO Max in 2021, and all of their releases are going straight simultaneously, but straight to HBO Max as well as in the theaters.
Yeah.
And that's changing things. And they say it's only going to be for a year.
Yeah.
But who knows? That could change the dynamics that it has forever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm all down for it. I was so happy to sit at home and watch Wonder Woman on Christmas Day. I was just like, have a couple drinks, sit back, watch it. Like, I was like in my home. I don't have to worry about driving anywhere. This is freaking awesome.
Oh, some of this is, I mean, at first I bristled because I'm like, $20 to rent it? What? And then I'm like, well, but yeah, I mean, I'm all right with it. I'm going to watch it, right?
It's creating a whole nightmare for the guilds and the producers, however, because certain contracts say first release, the players, the director or whoever, if they have profit participation, they only get so much money based on how much is earned. Right. If it doesn't go out and earn very much, what do they consider putting it on HBO? Is that first release? Is that a residual market? Is that something different? And all these definitions are being challenged and changed drastically.
I thought for sure
people to earn money on whatever they've written.
I thought for sure there were going to be lawsuits coming.
Oh, I think there will be.
Yeah.
I agree.
Lawsuits for what?
Well,
as Julie was talking about there, the whole idea that you had the different windows, theatrical, then cable, then streaming, then home video, or in any particular order, and compensation for a lot of the A-list or above the line people can be based on how well it performs in each window.
Yeah.
And Warner Brothers has just said all the windows are gone. There's only one window, and it's boom, we're out everywhere at the same time. Maybe home video is a little bit later because there's time to manufacture it. So the decision that they made, I'd be curious to know if they actually did any kind of, pre-discussions with the people whose
addendums to their contracts.
Well, and I wonder, because I mean, movie accounting is creative at its best. I mean, pretty
maybe
much
even more creative than what we do, actually, to be honest.
I mean,
my friend's an accountant and works
very
in
much
film.
so.
Because at least ours doesn't verge on the criminal.
verge. I mean, let's be honest. The only more creative.
I want to work with these people.
I mean, because the only more creative accounting you find about what's in the expenses that count above the line expenses, below the line expenses, as to what counts in your points. And all these other things. So, if you're the director, you're a top list actor or whatever else, if you've bet part of your stuff on points, well, that's where you see studios that batch together. These 5 films are being produced together, so they're going to split expenses. But so that means we're going to cut into these over here to defray these over here. And I mean, some of it gets really creative. So starting to talk about how we view things, how we want to consume things, how the industry is changing. And I mean, let's just be honest, 2020 forced changes to every industry. I mean, from technology, because I mean, there's a bunch of us sitting here, they're all technologists, to we're sitting here talking about writing and consumption of entertainment. So binging was not a thing up until very recently. I mean, there was a certain societal aspect of, oh, we watch this every week, and I've got my routine of Monday night I watch this and this, Tuesday night I watch this and this, and in the office the next day we talk about these things. Well, then we go to no, we're going to binge it. So you've got to make sure, is everybody binging at the same pace and watching and binging the same episodes?
I don't think there's any way to do that, but I think what binging does is it changes how things are made. It changes the production process, and especially the post-production process.
Oh,
Because if you're on a series and it's going 22 episodes, and you start your scripts writing in June, and you start filming in July, and you're on in September with episode 1, there's a reason why you don't go 22 straight weeks, because physically it's not possible. And so you have to keep up with the post-production and the editing and the music and everything in order to get to episode 22 in March. And so these people are having to reinvent and redo or figure out different ways to do their production so that they have everything ready at once to drop.
yep. I wish we'd done that.
Well, and also, well, I
But
think
it
there's
wasn't
also
a thing, Tamsin. It really was.
I know, but it was by the time I was
well, but there's
that
another
nasty little section.
well, there's another interesting question about that though, because one of the things that binging does, and if it's dropping on a streaming series, is it guarantees you're going to get a full season, or at least a full half a season. Whereas if it was network TV, if it sucked bad enough, sometimes you saw things disappear.
Right.
Oh, that's true.
Well, okay,
Right.
yes. If you drop the entire season, yes, you will see it all. But one thing it's also done is it shrunk the seasons.
Mm-hmm.
They're not doing 22 episodes of The Crown.
True.
Seasons are now 10 or 12 episodes, maybe.
Yeah.
Right.
Instead of that
Well, there's no
14.
season. There's no season anymore. There's no television anymore. It's all.
Oh yeah, I got
different
rid
now.
of cable this year.
Well, television.
Right. I mean, it's all. I mean, yeah. I mean, the whole.
Well, the term-
I
the
tell you,
term
I just walked around
television-
saying the words "cut the cord" for like it was so obnoxious, but he kept saying it because he was so in. But we did a few years ago, and so now, I mean, everything's an app or it's a streaming service, and that means there's literally no season.
Yeah.
I mean, the last thing I remember watching as a real season was How to Get Away with Murder.
Yeah.
But even then, their seasons got strange towards the end. It wasn't your standard, okay, everything's coming back in the fall, and then we can take a break and comes back. It stopped doing that. So everything, the way that we consume, television shows or whatever, it's all different now.
Yeah.
And so I don't think that the standard stuff that we all might have learned about, especially if you went to school for this, to know how to write a compelling miniseries or compelling whatever. It's different. The rules have all changed.
And to Julie's point too, that on the business side of it, all of the contracts and what people are used to doing, all based on the old stuff
Yeah.
for the most part. They've had the death of the middle class writer articles all over the place in terms of like television writers who. If you got on a show with a 22 episode order from a network, you're good, but now you're getting on a show like, again, I'll use Discovery as an example, 13 episodes, 14 writers in the writer's room. It's like the most half-assed game of musical chairs, because
If you're lucky, you get one script.
Yeah. If you're lucky if you're going to get the script,
Wow.
a story, your base pay. I mean, all the things that would add up in a writer's contract to being able to make a living at it. And it's like when I get in my car and I recognize my Uber driver as a staff writer on a TV show that I absolutely love. I mean, that's kind of, it makes you think about, going to the business part of being a writer who's not in that role of being a staff writer. Of creating your original material to sell, because unfortunately that's really the only way. It's like panning for gold.
Yeah.
Now the plus side of that is, at least for me in terms of television, because of the advent of these streaming services, there are now so many places to sell television content. And what El-Marie was saying there too is that television is now two different things. There's the technology of television, and then there's the content of television. It's like almost like the word Xerox is a generic word for photocopies.
Mhm.
Television is a generic word for any serialized filmed content,
Right.
and the fact that now you've got people who are established players, like the executive producer and creator of Bones, that show that ran for 100 years on Fox back in the day.
Yeah.
I saw him at a conference a couple years ago, where he was talking about a show he developed. He didn't create it, but he worked with the creator of it. They had to sell it in Poland to get it to come back here, you know, and it's so at the same time, all these things are changing and they're writing these articles about how nobody can make any money at it anymore. The fact is you can sell stuff all over the world now because Netflix and Hulu and Amazon, I mean, they're looking beyond the 300 million people in the United States, which is still where the networks are. They've got that. So they're like, we're not going to challenge that. We're going to go around them. And so, you know, your odds are still good that you're going to sell something. I'm trying to put a positive spin on it for myself as well as anybody who's watching.
Right. But you know, you said something, Mark, that made me think about this thing. I remember there was a dynamic that I remembered considering a while ago, that there's no superstars anymore. Like, you know, back when there was, you know, your action stars. So you had in the 80s, you were like Arnold Schwarzenegger, Sylvester Stallone. There was like a couple of guys, you know. Right. Then, you know, you had there in each genre, there was a couple of people that you kind of went to for everything. Yeah. But now that's not like in an age where I can go on to Twitter and, like, you know, friend or like or follow Bruno Mars, right? He's a megastar in terms of singing, right? But when he can say something and I can say, oh, I think that's cool. And he can respond back, sure, that is cool. But, you know, whatever, talking directly to my post, the distance is gone between, you know, this mega, oh my gosh, you're so untouchable, and this, you know, the regular person like me. And same goes for when you were talking about seeing your Uber driver and recognizing them as a writer. That's a reality that the mystique is kind of gone, I think. You know what I mean? So yeah, you talk about how we have so many different avenues to sell work. That's kind of a good and a bad thing. Yeah. Because so does everybody. Right. And so therefore there's a lot of places to sell it, but it's going to be sold for less money likely, right? Because there's so many more people, so many more series or movies or whatever to pick up. And if you sell it for less money and you can't earn a living at it, now you're seeing your Bruno Mars in the supermarket. Right. Love his work, but he's in the supermarket. Right. You know, how much of how does that impact your feelings towards the work, your the superstar status thing? Because a lot of times you'd buy something just because it was Bruno Mars. I'm keep using him as a reference because, you know, just like he came to mind, but anyone, Denzel Washington, use him. How you know, I can't imagine seeing Denzel Washington anywhere, like a supermarket. Right? Oh yeah. But now anybody could be. These people become stars on TikTok. If you can literally do that, that person is in the supermarket. If they live in your neighborhood, they went to the store, you see them.
As much as, you know, people say that writers in Hollywood are kind of a maligned, you know, class to some degree. I feel like it's incredibly worse for especially young actors because they're coming in. I was at a seminar about TV pilots, and a young actor had come in and you know, she and I sat there, we're talking, and I mean, she was maybe 19, 20 years old, something like that. You know, beautiful, talented. I'd seen her in like some CSI episode or something, and you know, she was unique amongst people her age because she was not at all into social media. Like, she just didn't have time for it, you know. And but she had found out, her representatives told her, said, you know, we're rapidly approaching, this was maybe 2 or 3 years ago, said we're rapidly approaching the time where if you're up for a part, the hiring studio or production company, and you're up against somebody else for the same part, they're going to go with the person who has more Instagram or social media followers than you. And you know, and that's coming our way. So I'm trying to figure out freaking Twitter. I mean, I generally don't post a lot of stuff on Twitter because I'm afraid that people will respond.
Well, in the publishing industry, this is something we've been talking about for a long while, is if I've got 2 manuscripts sitting in front of me and that are roughly equivalent, and one of them has a social media following, they have an email list, they've got a business model behind it. The other one has no following. I'm going to buy the one, even if it's not as good a book, I'm going to buy the one where somebody's got a following because I'm going to move more product. Because that's the painful part, is it's not just the creativity, it's not just the story like we'd like to believe. There's the business side to it.
Mm-hmm.
There's,
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest, this is a business. The money
Yeah.
moves the engine around for all of it.
There was a
So
guy that said they call it show business for a reason. They don't call it show art.
mhm.
Right? Sure. He's
And-
got banner after banner, T-shirt after T-shirt.
I've
coming
heard
out.
all
Right?
of
Look
this
at
stuff
you.
from-
I can see your store now.
classes and I did not create any of this stuff. I'm just these little things that I remember when I don't remember my deadlines.
So
Right?
so talking about the business side of things, because really writing has writing has always been very much a freelancing business anyway. I mean, you're in there, you've got to create your pipelines, you've got to run it truly like a business. It's not just the creativity. And this is a pain point when I teach workshops and things like this. Everybody's like, I just want to write. That's great. You still have to pay the bills. You still have to keep stuff running. You still have to keep stuff going.
Right.
So, I know everybody sitting here has made millions on their writing, so that's not a problem for them. So, but
I'm doing it $20 at a time.
Right.
Right? I
so
had an Amazon payment this week for $35, and I was like, oh, it's not 35 cents. Holy cow! Someone must have bought something.
Tamsin, that's hilarious because I literally had that conversation with my. I was like, "Yo, look how much money I made!"
I'm blowing up over here.
that's going to pay for my coffee to write the next one.
Right? And I was like, wow, someone must have bought like a book or something. I was like, they must have bought like a print or two. I was just like, wow, look at that.
Right? You feel so
Well,
good
if
for a
that
minute, don't you?
translates
I felt so good about that. I was like, oh, I bet that's from Christmas. Like it was literally that moment. I was like, oh, it makes sense. Like it was just funny.
But that also translates into residual payments that writers may get.
Oh, I'd
And,
like
and it's heading off into the business section aspect of it. A writer who writes a script for a TV show will receive residuals every time that episode airs. And there's now different formulas for what they will receive depending on where it airs. If
Oh.
it goes up on Amazon as streaming, you may see $4.69 on that script. Now, you might have earned about $25,000 initially, but depending on where it airs. If it airs on USA Network, you might get $20,000 of it. It really depends.
Yeah. And
But those residuals are very important in making money too.
My friend is living off residuals right now because he's a
Yes.
stuntman. He works for a lot of TV shows. He's done a lot of Marvel, like TV stuff. He'd worked on Daredevil, and he's done a lot of that. So right now, I'm like, how are you? Because he lives in New York City. And I'm like, how are you doing? And he's like, I'm fine. I said, no, I mean financially, how are you doing?
Yeah.
And he goes, thank God for residuals.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yes.
That is paying, because that's paying my rent, that's paying my food. Like I'm living off residuals right now.
Yeah.
And the formula is the more times it airs, the less you receive. So if he's in an episode of Star Trek Discovery or whatever, by the time it hits the 12th airing, now you're getting $12. Whereas the first couple airings, you might have gotten really nice money to live on, like your friend.
If you could go to Fridays and have dinner by yourself without alcohol.
Yeah.
Without alcohol. Why are
Wait,
you
you
going
can
out? No.
But see, that doesn't match with like saying you're a writer without alcohol. Is like, that's,
Right.
what is that?
No,
That's,
I don't drink much.
yeah. I was like,
Ha!
I don't.
I've been in the bar with you at
I
Dragon
was
Con.
jealous of the
Yeah,
size of
because people bought them for me. Jim, I'm not lying.
Jim's coffee cup got me thinking about that.
About what?
Jim's coffee cup, because it was about this big around when he took a drink out of it before. I was like, there you go. There's plenty of room for extras.
It's coffee plus.
Yeah.
Right now, the
For the
stocks are
Disney
running low
Plus?
after we got 8 inches of snow in the driveway. Can't get out of the house.
Oh no.
Oh,
I guess we won't mention there's about 70 degrees here today.
Oh. Julie, I didn't get any snow, but you can still keep that to yourself. It's freezing up here right now.
That's what my
oh,
sister
it's
says
cold
too.
here. It's cold and dry.
So let's actually dive into this a little bit, the business side of it, because you still, you still got to make a living. You still got to pay, you still got to pay the rent. You still got to pay the bills. You still got to, you still got to eat. And if you're a writer, you still have to drink probably. So everyone here does something other than just write. So, Mark, I'm going to pick on you first.
Sure.
Because you've covered film, you've covered comic books, you've you novel, the whole gamut. So that's all you do, right? That's all you ever do, right?
At this point, it was February of 2019, I got laid off from my job. And that's when I decided that I was going to find an investor for the company, for a production company, because I had come to the conclusion that, as a staff writer or, a writer for hire, I didn't feel like I was going to be able to build up to the point where I could sustain myself, at that point. I mean, and we've talked offline and in other panels about the whole idea of, the need to be a starving artist, which I don't believe at all, because I like food, I like shelter, I like my Netflix and my Hulu and all that. But I'll tell you, and I'd had this friend for years, and he of course managed his what we would call a day job. He called a career. He managed it with much greater, acumen than I managed mine. And so he was in a position to be able to say, I'll give you X amount of dollars, which would keep me going for several years to see if I can move these things forward. Because I just came to the conclusion at some point, and this is partially from working in licensed comics, that if you want, in order to make the most off of what you create, you need to own what you create. And I think if you're a screenwriter who works in film, or a screenwriter who works in television like I do, that means you have to create and sell original series. And I didn't even really think about this as something to really do. I mean, it kind of snuck up on me because the project with Roddenberry, at one point we were working on that, and I had a good day job. I didn't need to say, oh, you have to pay me for this. But at some point, we'd been working on it long enough where I'm like, I need to get something if we're going to keep going. And we've been on it now for several years, working on it. And what happened with me there was, I said, I need some skin in the game. You can give me a little bit against a payment when you sell it. We can come up, there's all kinds of creative ways we can do it. And where we finally landed was me owning a percentage of that show. Now, granted, Roddenberry's got the bigger share of that percentage, but the interesting part about that is the way writing credits and Writers Guild rules work. As an owner of that show, if you write a pilot for somebody as an assignment, you'll get paid for that pilot. You'll get paid as the creator of that show if it goes to a series. But say it blows up and is something huge and it spawns sequels and lunchboxes and toys and all kinds of other stuff, you won't see any of that. An owner will see that.
Merchandising.
And so having worked in that industry prior to getting into this end of it, I kind of knew that going in, and it really was like, okay, I think it's time to make a company out of this and own the content that I'm creating. And it's not the only way to be successful in it, not by any measure, but it seemed to me that the way things were going, the content creators, I mean, this whole system doesn't work if there aren't people creating content anyway. So as much as we, they can't do it without us, so that was kind of where I ended up in it. But, in the process of building that company, I between the time I was laid off and the time I got the money was about 8 months. And during that period, I had to build a database in order to make money. I found a gig building a database to manage motion picture projects at a production company here in town. And, I hadn't used those skills in forever. So it was like, checking out, rereading Code Guru and all this stuff online, and like trying to ask them like, well, what kind of database do you want to use? And they gave me something like, some online thing that was, it made FileMaker Pro look like SQL. But anyway, that's to get too techie on it. But yeah, I mean, but for the majority of my time as a writer, I had a job doing something else. And
So,
yeah.
Elle Marie, what about you too? I mean,
I have several jobs. I've been a project manager for 20 something years, and
I'll lift that audio when the
no, please no. You can blur it like you did or something. But a long time. I mean, my whole I was a technical writer for some of it, but mostly a project manager, and I still do that. It pays the bills. It's something I know how to do, and I've done for years and years, and we don't struggle because of it, right? But at the same time, I am an English professor at 3 schools because I love it, right? I love teaching, and then I write, right? I mean, that's my true passion. But and some can say, every time when I start talking about what the things I do, they wonder, how can you, when you have the time for all these things? Well, when you have a passion for something, you make the time. I'm gonna write no matter what. Like, I feel like I physically have to write, right? Yeah. I don't want to struggle. That's never been something I wanted. And I know that, people don't go into it saying, okay, I want to struggle. I don't know any artists who think that way, but I set myself at a position where I said, I need money to get to to these conventions. I need money to get to whatever thing I might want to do to further that other part of my life that's so important. So how am I going to get that money if I don't have a job, right? So I kept maintaining that job, and years go by. I mean, you can shut your eyes and blink and it's 10 years later, right? And so I've been in these careers. The teaching came about, oh gosh, I mean, maybe 10 years ago, when I decided that, okay, at some point I'm going to stop doing project management. Don't know when that'll be, but when I do, it doesn't mean I want to stop working, because and now I'm just kind of used to it. So what do I want to do? And teaching makes sense for me. I mean, it's just something, and it's English, of course. So I'll be teaching, people how to do the stuff I do, how to do creative writing stuff, those sort of projects. But I couldn't not do that, because, and reconciling that is really important, I think, early on. If you don't realize that to do the things you want to do, they require money, and you've got to figure out a way to earn that money, then you're doing yourself a disservice, because some of the realisms about this industry, whether it's novels, short stories, whatever, or, screenwriting and film and whatever, it's the same struggle, just parallel lanes, if you will. I mean, if you sell something and make a lot of money, and you're the Stephen King and you're the, that's a rarity. Yeah. I'm not trying to say you can't sell, don't get me wrong, but those $300,000 advances that when I was coming up thinking that's what people made, please, that's like a fantasy. Might have happened to some people, but that has not happened to me yet. Right. Anyone I know, and that doesn't, if you're doing what you love, then that doesn't matter. Like I'm saying, I have to write to get myself to a convention. I have to have money. Therefore, I do these other things.
Well, and the one thing that I heard that really settled with me is every business is about communication.
Yeah.
Whether you're writing ads, whether you're writing entertainment, whether you're writing novels, everyone is about writing. So if you can write, you can make a living using words. It may not be always the fun stuff,
right?
But you can make a living as a writer and as a communicator, but you've got to spend the time. It's like any other business. You've got to invest the time up front, building the relationships, building the pipelines, and being able to pick up a phone and go, all right, what you got for me? Or being there so that people pick up a phone and call you and say, I need this. How fast can you turn it around?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's sometimes difficult. Sorry, Jim. That's sometimes difficult for writers, because the ones who sit and because being that sort of business style type of writer, a freelance writer who's going to write articles, who's going to write, whatever that kind of stuff is, that's a different animal from the creative writer who's writing a novel and so when you're trying to make yourself do it, it's really, really hard. I mean, if we think about it, us novelists and even to some degree screenwriters, we have a really hard time when it comes down to writing a synopsis because that's too short. We've got the sprawling thing. Who wants to condense it? Or writing a bio. A bio derailed me once.
I
What
hate
is
that.
this thing? You know, too much is too much. And it's because it's not the style of writing that we do. So I actually spent a year as a freelance writer, and I can't tell you how much I ran right back to every career that I ever had. Like, listen, how many classes can I teach, and where can I start doing this project management again? Because listen, I wrote a newspaper, had two regular columns every week, good money, guaranteed money for the year that I did it, guaranteed money. I was a freelance writer taking articles, requests, and for a travel agency, I wrote all this promo and all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. And then I did some ghost writing with those, this, I don't know if they call it ghost writing. What do they call it? Content writing, but that's ghost writing.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Like the quick 1,000-word things that you get paid a decent wage for, but not what you should be getting paid for.
Yeah.
But, you rack up all these little gigs. And I was able to do it, but I was tired. So I went back to where the money was better, and I could do it, and I felt more comfortable because I was not the person who could say, okay, hey, what do you have for me this week? Or I felt terrible doing it as the type of writer I am now. I can write you a novel in 2 months and be done with it, and I'm fine with that. But asking you to give me a couple of, article assignments was really hard. So.
Yeah.
I'm on my what? I'm on my second career, and I'm on my second side and my second creative job, actually, in my life. So I went to school for theater education, and I taught high school and I taught middle school drama, and I ran theater company in New York City, and that was my creative outlet, and I did that. And then I also ended up, and I was a teacher for a while first. And then I got out of teaching, and that's a really long story. And in short, I don't like politics in my job life, and that's what dealing with the Board of Education is. And that's my story. So I ended up leaving teaching and going into healthcare, which actually has proved behooves me greatly because it's money that I know I can count on. I'm good at what I do, and I need healthcare.
Mm-hmm.
I've damaged myself throughout my life different ways as a dancer and other things, and so I see doctors for feet and back and you name it. And so when people are like, well, why do you carry a regular job? I'm like, because they pay my health care.
And Tamsin raises a very good point. It's like I know people who kept a job where they could have made a lot more money at that job, but they're like, no, I just need this for the coverage.
Oh yeah, definitely. But there's actually something else though. And I wish I'd known this when I was younger. So I hope anyone who's watching this who loves something artistic heeds this. It's totally okay to understand that you can, and don't ever think you need to apologize for doing a regular job and an artistic job.
Yes.
One definitely creates, like someone was like, well, I can't go to all these panels and conventions. I'm like, yeah, that day job that you always think is ridiculous that I carry, that helps pay for that because there's paid time off and I can put money away and I know how much is coming every week. But more importantly, I have found that there's a freedom for me in my heart, my soul, and my head, because I know there's money coming in. I know that I'll be okay. I can pay my bills. And I'm doing something a little more right-brained. I'm doing analytics, I'm doing numbers, and I'm doing that. And then I switch and I go and I do something artistic. Mm-hmm. And I secretly wonder if it was just something, if I only was doing artistic, would I feel like there's a push for it as much? For me, that might not be for everybody, but I feel that one actually gives me the freedom to do the other. And so if you're someone out there who is wanting to write or act or whatever, and you keep coming down on yourself because you also are carrying this day job at an office or whatever, don't. That's wasted disgust in yourself, because it actually is freeing you to do what you love. Mm-hmm. And I think that's something I wish I had known when I was younger, because there were years I spent being like, I'm wasting my time. I had a friend say to me once, do you think I should take this job at this ad agency? Because then I wouldn't be a full-time actor anymore. And I said, you are diabetic and you're losing your insurance. He was about to lose his insurance, even though he was SAG after. I said, you're about to lose insurance. I said, does it give you that? And he said, yeah. I said, well, then do it. If you hate it, you can leave. Like, it's not like I'm going to do this job and they're going to staple me there and I'm there until I die. He now, you know what's funny? Turns out he became the creative director of that company.
Yeah.
He then helped open the new location in California. And now he's with a bigger ad company and he has blown up. And now he's getting to do a lot of what he loves and support his wife doing it and his kids. And he's also being creative because now he is like one of the top people in one of these companies. He's still creative. But it all started with, Tamsin, do you think I should take this job? Because then I'm not an actor full time.
You know, I wonder sometimes who are we? We have these labels we apply to ourselves and we beat ourselves over the head with them.
Yeah.
No one else is looking at us like that. Like, not really.
No, just us.
You know what I mean? Like, no one, people may think we make millions of dollars doing what we're doing and that's their, like, whatever. I mean, ask me, I'll tell you the truth. The answer is no. But why do I care? They're not counting my money nor paying a bill of mine. You know, so what do we care? I'd love to be a full-time writer only because I don't want to do certain things. I'm tired of being tired is all. But otherwise,
oh my God, amen, girl.
Right. But otherwise, like I love teaching. I wouldn't trade that in for anything. So
I thought these two things were requirements for being a writer. Number one, you drink.
Yeah.
And number two, you got to be tired.
You know, interestingly enough, I don't drink much at all. I drink coffee too much.
Mark's like, I got that covered. We're good.
Yeah, well, so one of us has it. But the tired.
That's why I'm drinking this.
There you have it. There you have it. I mean, the tired, I would rather it be from me staying up late to do my own work than, you know, stuff that's not.
Yeah, that'd be nice.
But at the same time, if you're doing that and you're not rolling it, you haven't made the $300,000 advance, and you are then now adding stress to yourself that doesn't need to be there. I'm always confused as to why we as creatives sort of have this standard that we're trying to live up to for someone else. Because I've never met a person who didn't have a mindset, a creative person who didn't have this one little thing in the back of their head saying, oh, I'm not doing such and such. And it's not even their own assessment of themselves. It's someone else's assessment.
Yeah.
You think it's the time we grew up? I mean, I know, I'm sure all of you guys are way too young to remember 1980. So,
right now.
Yeah.
You're all way too young, I know.
I wish.
We'll try to.
Right, please.
We'll try.
My parents are unfortunately.
But think about it. That's what we used to watch. We used to watch people. They were like, oh, you know, you do this one job. Like my father taught. That was his one job. Like he liked to play music, but that wasn't something he pursued as another career. You know, my mother stayed home until I was a senior, and then she was like, "Oh, you got a lot of bills as a senior. I better get a part-time job." So, you know, right? But like, we grew up in a time where people had a job. They did that job, and I think that's sort of because anyone who's younger now that I've talked to, really younger. I mean, unless someone has said to them, "You need to make sure that you do such and such," or you blah blah blah. You know. I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
Well,
like
guys,
it might be how
where did you all grow up?
I grew up
I'm from New York.
Baltimore.
I am from low country of South Carolina.
I grew up in the Midwest in St. Louis, and I think that has something to do with it.
Oh yeah, I can see
I'm
that.
assuming none of us grew up in the industry.
No.
And I think that has something to do. We grew up outside of the television or the film industry or the creative industry, and we came into it. And we brought how we were raised and how we were taught and what we saw into an industry that is very different than that.
Yeah.
And people who grew up in the television and entertainment industry, they look at things very differently.
Do they?
Well, and they're getting shaken up now too, based on what we were talking about a few minutes ago.
Yes.
They are. It was the same for so long.
Oh, well, guys, we've been here a long time, and we still haven't gotten around to talking about screenwriting yet. So we're going to have to do another episode.
Around what?
About what? Wait, what were we here for? But I think we've had a great chat here about the business side of it. I mean, I think this has been a great conversation. So before we get out of here, what's one hint I want everybody to give somebody that is looking at doing some screenwriting? What's the one thing that, when you started working on screenplays or writing and that side of things, that you just want to tell somebody who hasn't done it yet or is trying to find their niche, trying to catch that one thing? What's the one thing for you?
Dialogue.
There you go. That's good.
Dialogue is that from someone who went from books to writing screen and then back, I was amazed at how much really rides on that dialogue.
Yeah.
And Julie brought this up. So if you find that you are someone who likes to write, but you have trouble with dialogue, then that's something I would focus on, because that is truly what can give your character life on that kind of page, because you don't get much else. You get little things you can put in there, but not enough, So I would say if dialogue is not your strength, then that's something you would take classes on or study or read more on.
Mm-hmm.
I would advise, my advice would be work on speed, primarily if you're interested in television. And I say work on speed because you can work on a screenplay forever, because at some point you have to decide that it's going to be done. And I say this because a screenplay, unlike a novel, novels and tend to be, they're closer to the finished product when the author's done. I know it's going to be edited and they're going to go back and forth, but it's much closer. There are fewer hands involved.
Mm-hmm.
So think of a screenplay as a blueprint for a building. You're going to hand that off to somebody there's going to be hundreds, if it goes the distance and it's going to get made, there could potentially be hundreds of people working on that, all bring kind of their creativity to certain areas of it. So the idea is, don't be too protective of what you've written, and be open to people changing it. You're getting the ball rolling with your screenplay. All the elements have to be there. It has to be an engaging story and engaging characters and something that people want to see, and it has some commercial appeal at that moment that you're selling it. But because I'm saying this from experience of having had a screenplay that you're unwilling to consider potential changes. And I was working with a development guy on a different project at one point, and we'd gone 8 or 9 months, and I just like talking to a co-writer I was working with at the time. I was working with this development guy. I was like, man, this guy is really just, I don't even know what he's bringing to it. And we turned in a draft, and we have this meeting, and there's out of the blue, he says this one thing that makes it all just go like this. And I'm like, F that guy. It wasn't my turn to curse, so I'll say F this guy. because he wanted to have story credit on this thing. And I was like, I don't see what he's contributing to it. And his one little thing was so effing good. And I was like, okay, that's worth it. All that is to say, screenplays are a team sport. Screenwriting is a team sport. You're getting it started, and eventually these other folks are going to come in. So be open to where you get the creativity from, and don't have anybody in your family give you notes. Find somebody else who knows what they're doing as screenwriting goes, because they want to. These people they do want to help you, because they don't want to do it forever. So, anyway. That would be my advice. Be open to the creative process of doing it with a team. That's kind of why I chose screenwriting, because I don't know how I could do it by myself writing novels. You guys have my utmost admiration.
If I were planning to give someone some advice, I would say know the history. So if you're going to pick a genre, right? Everybody picks a thing they want to write. They don't have to write the same thing all the time, of course. But if they say that they want to write suspense and they've never watched Hitchcock, then they've made, that's a mistake. You go and you watch, or you can write it. There's no, I am a believer that you can, just like you can read well, let's say this properly. You can write well without having read. You can write movies without having watched, except you should watch. I mean, there's no reason not to watch. Why would you not watch? You're not copying when you watch. You're learning. You're learning how to set your scene, how to, use the dialogue to move the story along. How what do you do? What are the beats?
Mhm.
And so when you watch someone who's at the top of their craft, you're learning. You should be, pen to paper. It's not just let me view the movie. Pen to paper. This is how they moved into this, and oh, look at this. Oh, let me watch another one. I remember assigning a student to watch Rear Window, and then I'm like, don't talk to me until you're done. Don't talk to me until you're done. Just don't say anything until we're done.
I love that assignment.
Right, easily. And then another time, another student who wanted to write comedic horror, and while this is not necessarily comedic horror, it's very, very dark. Very Bad Things. Ever see that movie?
Oh yeah.
Very Bad Things. Fantastic flick. But the beats, the comedy is so dead on. Like, you can't, and I don't write comedy. So I was like, let's watch this. Let's check out how they, where they're putting these jokes, how they work and why. And if you don't do that sort of time investment and research on your own, career, then you're assuming you know it all. And while you might be quite good, someone else knows something too. So why not, use what's out there, say, okay, either validate that you knew how to do it or learn something new from someone who did quite well. So.
And Julie?
Wow. I'm just going to say, Tamsin with her dialogue, great idea. Absolutely. Mark, kill your darlings. Be willing to kill your darlings on the page if necessary. And for Elle-Marie, I think it's like, yes, study people who have come before, read scripts. You can find them online. Read the books that are out there. None of them are perfect, but find the nugget in a how-to book that will serve you, because every person writes individually. So don't compare yourself to anybody else.
Yeah.
Good.
Well, I really appreciate you guys coming and joining and spending the time with us tonight. So if everybody could let everyone out there to know where we can find you, social media, websites, all that good stuff. So Tamsin, I'll start with you.
Okay.
As we get the look of sheer terror.
I'm like, what? Me first? Why? So you can find me at tamsinsilver.com. And you also can go to skyofthedam.com. It's up and running again. Turned out the reason it wasn't up was my partner in crime was like, oh, that's my fault. Sorry. So it's now, I thought I was going to have to rebuild it. I was like, oh my God. So I don't, but you can find me there. Also, if you're into historical fantasy at all, and you're on Facebook and you look up Billy the Kid Rides Again, I've got a series out. This is The Curse of Billy the Kid. Book 2 is The Torment of Richard Brewer, and I just finished writing The Murder of Cricket Kugler, which will come out in 2021. And those are definitely historical fantasy with real history and all kinds of fun twists and turns that I highly recommend. If you're into that, check it out.
That sounds cool.
Elle-Marie?
Well, you can find me at elmariewood.com, also on Twitter at elmariewood1, and on Facebook at Elle-Marie Wood. Facebook.com/Elle-Marie-Wood. Yeah, I read something somewhere about branding and I really took that one to heart,
Yeah, I'm just Tamsin Silver on Facebook and on Twitter.
Yeah.
We read the same article, huh?
We must have.
Mark?
Keep it simple.
I guess you can find me on Twitter at Mark Haynes. I surreptitiously looked it up because I couldn't remember what my Twitter handle was. But I do get the notification, so I will respond to that. So yeah, anybody, and I'm going to start using it more as I have more things to publicize. Right now, I've got 3 or 4 different, I got 3 pilot projects and a 4th one pending that are kind of all at the tipping point. So hopefully in 2021, within the next 6 months, there'll actually be news. But yeah, if you have any questions about, screenwriting or the comic book business, it's definitely, keep doing your work, keep the writing. And as we were to spend a lot of time talking about the day jobs, that's the gas in your tank to keep writing. So feel absolutely okay doing it. And even if you get good at what you're doing, that's just, that's even better, because it gives you the experiences you can put into the writing. So.
Are you on Facebook, Mark?
I am, but I usually only do the Facebook for people I've met in person. So yeah, I don't use my Facebook for the marketing end of it too much.
That makes sense.
And Julie?
Well, like Mark, I only do Facebook with people I've met in person. I do have a Twitter account at Julie Hurwitz. I don't use it that much. I am not a big Twitterer. But you can also find me under my pseudonym, which is Chloe Devlin. And so chloedevlin.blogspot.com is a very old blog that's up there. I'm working on updating it. And if you are into anything spicy and sexy and want to read some really hot erotic short stories, they're out there.
Very good.
She said
Nice.
that without blushing. I mean, I'm really passionate.
Oh, please. I'm a romance writer. Would you like me to go through all the words that for male members? You know, I can go through a whole list of them without blushing.
I love
That'll
that
be
you
a
do
future
that.
panel. Will be done as a part of the new romance track. So you'll be back for that. That
Okay.
one may have to be on the after hours.
Right, right.
It's okay.
I see
Come to
17.
Dragon Con. I got a panel you can come to with me.
Hey,
And-
James, Jim, can I use the F word here since I don't know if anybody has?
Sure, she used
I
it, but I'll
used
give
it.
it to you
Oh,
anyway.
shit, okay. It was
I
only
did, but go
because
for it.
a guy, I don't know what, something that Julie said reminded me. I was in a screenwriting class with this guy at one point who was very interested in selling kind of an updated version of Peter Pan, you know, where it was the kind of the lost boys and, you know, they're shipwreck victims, and it was going to have a much more realistic aspect, but you would see what would become the basis of the Peter Pan story that we all know. And it's the instructor asked him, could you what's the shortest pitch you could think of for that show? And he says, Peter Pan says fuck.
Oh my gosh.
I don't know if he ever wrote it. And I'm just like, I think he left to go like code websites or something. I'm like, why did you do that?
Right? That was actually really good.
I know, I want to
That's
see
awesome.
that.
Yeah, I know. Well, well, and I have been fortunate enough to be your host this evening. I'm Jim Nettles. You can find me at jamespnettles.com, authoressentials.net, and of course here at Continual. And again, if you like what you see and you like what you're hearing, you know, do all the share, like, subscribe, and let everybody know what we're doing. So we want to thank it, and night, everybody.
Night,
Night, everyone.
everybody.
Have a good
Thank
one.
you.
Keep writing.